Tonight, more than 43 million Americans are on the hook for student loans for the first time in more than 3 years. The pause on interest and repayments has now ended.
The pause began in March of 2020 during that first wave of the pandemic. It was then extended 8 times, both under former President Trump and President Biden, before it was announced that there would be no additional extensions.
President Biden proposed a plan to wipe out $20,000 for eligible borrowers, but that was blocked this summer by the Supreme Court.
And again, around 43 million Americans now have a monthly student loan payment again.
It's going to be something to adjust to. Joining us now with some tips for those repayments is Catherine Elowitz, a HUD-certified counselor from Green Path, a financial counseling company. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So this is going to be a big adjustment for a lot of people who had that break. We see inflation is still an issue, so there's a lot to juggle. What is your advice for now re-entering this world?
Yes, well, the first thing I would say is contact your loan servicer. So make sure you know the information. Your servicer may have even changed in the last 3 years. So it's good to go to studentaid.gov to figure that information out. Then I would encourage people to explore the repayment plans that are available. There might be new ones that you're not available or that weren't available before the pandemic, and you may qualify. And then finally, I think this is the time that you have to start thinking about how to make those payments back into our budgets, right? It's a big change. And so if, credit card payments are something that's weighing on your budget, we encourage you to give Green Path a call. We're here for you to be able to figure out how that payment might fit back into your budget.
All right, so say you were on one of the income-based repayment plans before the pause. Can you just assume that exact same payment will be due, or what do you need to do now, especially if your income has changed?
Yes, that's a great question. Well, typically, so you're not going to have to do anything, but you could if your income has changed or your household size has changed. You might want to go into the system and recertify yourself. You may qualify for a lower payment than before, but otherwise, no action is needed. You will qualify if you qualified before the pandemic.
Okay, and if you've had a drastic change in terms of finances, it sounds like what you're saying is you need to just do some research to see what works best for you.
Yes, and I'll say that you're not alone. About 50% of our clients actually are in or within $100 of a deficit in their budgets. So you're not alone if this last 3 years has been really a challenge for you. Again, I would encourage people to call. That's why we're here. But yes, you're not alone, and we encourage you to call. It is a challenge, but there's new repayment plans available. So we encourage you to look into those and explore what's available to you.
And speaking of that, the government is now offering the SAVE plan, the Saving on a Valuable Education plan.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, it's a new plan. It qualifies more people than ever for a $0 monthly payment. And it qualifies more people than ever for a repayment plan that is based on their income. And in July of next year, it actually will, the calculation for it will decrease from 10% of your discretionary income to 5% of your discretionary income. So you can imagine that's a huge cut to your monthly payment.
Now, if you qualify for a $0 monthly payment, what's happening with your interest at the same time?
That's a great question. Yes, so if you're on the SAVE program, if you qualify for a $0 monthly interest or monthly payment, you do not have to pay. If you qualify for that $0 monthly payment, your interest will not go up because the plan is designed such that interest will not be added every month. So if you had a $50 payment and your interest was actually $60, that extra $10 would not be added to your balance. And so the same is true if your payment is $0.
Oh, that's good to know.
Trips up a lot of people.
Yeah. Are you hearing from a lot of people who are really concerned about this and kind of fearful a little bit?
Yes, we have seen an increase in our calls talking about student loans. From the beginning of this year, the first 6 months to the last 2 months, we've seen a 50% increase in our calls that are talking about student loans. So it's out there. People are worried and they need resources, and we're there for them.
How about recent grads? Any tips for them? Because for some people, they may have just graduated right before this in 2020. So they've gone years at this point without having to pay down that debt. Yeah,
that's definitely tricky. If this is your first student loan payment, I'd encourage you to really look at where in your budget you can adjust, right? It's expenses, decrease expenses or increase income. That's your options when you look at filling that payment back into your budget.
And I'd imagine there's information online as well for people to do some research to see what options are available to them.
Yes, absolutely. I really recommend studentaid.gov. That's a great resource, and of course our website as well, greenpath.com, is a great resource for anything student loans.
Well, Catherine, thanks so much for helping us out today. This is Catherine Elowitz from Green Path. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.